Good morning and welcome to another top 10 finds, mostly from the Thames foreshore. There's one, I think, which wasn't a Thames find, but we'll come to that later. This is the last top 10 because I've run out of decent stuff to show you. So we'll have to hope that the lockdown is relaxed enough for me to get out and about, and we will see what happens. Anyway, on with my top 10 post-medieval finds. So a bit of a mixed bag today. The first one is a complete Victorian pipe. I hope you can see it's got a snake going down the bowl with its little open mouth there. And complete Victorian, sort of 1850 to 1880. Very unusual to find a complete pipe on the Thames, as they normally wouldn't be thrown away unless they were broken. And because of the tide smashing in and out on the rocks and the rubble, they get smashed up once they become exposed pretty quickly. So I was lucky to find that just after it appeared from a weathered deposit. So that's my number 10. Not unusual to find pipes on the Thames, but nice to find a complete one. Number 9, also not a difficult sort of pottery to find, and people are always finding faces or parts of face, but this is my best Bartmann jug. So he's a German import, he's stoneware, and he probably dates from the 16th or 17th century. He's got quite a crude, scary face on him, which makes you think he's probably a little bit later. Some of the earlier ones were very beautifully modelled. So probably the 17th century. Face and a nice round bellied jug for this green man or drinker, whoever he might be. They used to be called Bellarmines because people thought they were named after Cardinal Bellarmine, but as they started making face jugs when he was about 12, he might have been quite a hairy child. So yeah, that's a nice find. Nice to find a more complete one day. Number 8. Do you know what this little piece of pottery is? It's the finial of something, and there's just the start of a little slit there, if you can see it. So this is the top of a money box, made in Borderware. These would be 16th or 17th century. A sort of famous association, which can't be proved, sadly, for this particular piece anyway, but there were plenty used in this way, would be on the South Bank at Southwark, with all the theatres and entertainments such as bull baiting and other lovely things that the Tudors got up to. And then people collect the money to see the show in these little boxes, and then they'd be smashed to collect the proceeds, which apparently is where we get the term box office for the theatre, because they'd be taken back somewhere. So this particular one is probably 17th century, so a little bit after Shakespeare, but it's exactly the same style as the Tudor money boxes. So that is my number 8. Not surprisingly, more pottery for my number 7. A good chunk of post-medieval redware, and it is the base, the complete base from a chafing dish. So if you imagine there would be a bowl shape here, and then I've got a little thing here, and there'd be 3 or maybe 4 projections on the rim on which you would rest a dish or a bowl of some sort, and in it you would put food to keep food warm. Chafing just means warming, basically, an old-fashioned word. Sometimes maybe you'd put incense or perfume there to dispel the stink of Tudor London. This has a nice grey core, so I'm going to give this a 16th century date, but they're also used in the 17th century, and you'd put your warm coals or charcoal there so the heat would rise up into the bowl there. So that is my number 7 post-medieval find chafing dish. Now on to number 6. This is an import, another German import. So we had the Bartmann jug, and this is a dish made from clay with slip and glaze and sgraffito decoration. So they've scratched a design into the surface of the slip to show the contrasting colour underneath. And this plate comes from Werra or Werra in Germany. And the figure there is a cavalier. So you can see he's got puffy sleeves and a thin waist and a sort of leather jerkin there. He probably would have been holding a flag, I would imagine. Maybe that's the sort of remains of the flag there. But you can see the concentric green lines. That's a very common feature of these dishes. Quick tip to separate your Werra from your Weser, which are two different imports. The Weser has lines on the base from where it was stacked on something. So I can find a piece. Oh, here we are. So this is Weser with the lines on the base. Werra, no lines on the base. Otherwise, very similar sort of German pottery. These were imported at the end of the 16th century and the beginning of the 17th century. So sort of 1580 to 1630 or thereabouts. So that's rather a nice piece there for my number 6. Number 5 is a departure from pottery and is glass. So this is the seal from an early English wine bottle and probably a shaft and globe, that type of thing. There's a picture I'll put up in a minute. But it shows, it's difficult to see because glass always gets this thing on it. I'll put a photo up. But it's a crown with a trio of letters above it, which is M, W, A. So the M at the top of the triangle of letters would stand for the surname, and then the W for the husband and the A for the wife's initials underneath. And it's possible to discover which pub this came from and the owners of the pub, because it's been identified. It's an Oxford bottle seal, the Crown pub, obviously, and the landlords are William and Anne Morrell. So you've got Morrell, William and Anne. And the records show that they were landlords of the Crown in Oxford from 1660 to 1679. So it's a 17th century bottle seal. Nice to find a complete one. That would be worth something. But a very, very nice find, and nice to tie it in with some real people. How it got from Oxford to London for me to find on the foreshore, I'm not sure. Normally they'd mark these bottles so they could be returned to them if they lent them out to colleges or something, but someone obviously kept the bottle and then it ended up in London. So that is my number 5. Number 4, another nice piece of clay there, slipware this time. So they've trailed a slip decoration on and given it a lead glaze on a red base. Now this I also found on the Thames foreshore, comes from Harlow in Essex, and it's known as Metropolitan slipware. And they made a lot of this with trailed designs of different sorts, but they also made ones with mottos, with letters going round, which would be very nice to find a complete one. That would make a fine price at auction. They're very desirable. And you've got an I, F and part of an E. And the only motto that I could discover with those letters in that order is rather a Puritan motto, and it is amend thy life and sin no more. So you've got the I, F, E of life. And that would fit around the diameter quite neatly, those letters. So when you had your porridge or gruel in the morning. It would remind you to amend your life and sin no more. And these were made in that period, so they would go from about 1630 to 1720. So that would include the whole Commonwealth period and the Civil War period. So a nice bit of English slipware, a very fine number 4. Now number 3 is my non-Thames find. This I found at a kiln site quite near to me, just in Hampshire, the other side. And it doesn't look really very much, but it intrigued me when I found it, because you've got the rim there, you can see, and it's nicely glazed, yellow glaze on the inside. But the throwing marks are all wrong. So normally the rim, you'd expect the marks to go diagonally, but they go vertically. And it's a very rare ceramic form, which was very interesting to find. It actually comes from a Schweinetopf, or casserole, pig's head in German. So it's a pig-shaped casserole. So it has a tubular body, with a cut-out lid which fits on top. It's tubular, that's why the throwing marks go the other way, and 4 little legs as well. So these are very unusual. A complete one was found at Jamestown in America, which was also Borderware. This is Borderware, dates to the second quarter of the 17th century, which is where they dated the kiln site that it came from. But a quite common thing on the continent, but this style of cooking never really took off in the UK, so it's a very German style form, perhaps made by immigrant potters who came in and started working in Hampshire in that Tudor and Stuart period. So an intriguing find, one I have recorded on the portable antiquity scheme, as it's quite rare, even though it doesn't look much. Okay, so top 2. A little bit of early English porcelain. Now this little tea bowl, so it would have a saucer and then you put your tea in it, was made at Vauxhall, so it's a bit of London porcelain. Now the Vauxhall porcelain factory was only open for 10 years, from 1753 to 1763. So it's quite a nice piece of early English porcelain to find, especially the complete profile of the tea bowl there. Very much based on the Chinese export porcelain. So you've got a Chinese style figure in a Chinese style garden with a fence there. They had a bit of a problem with the glaze. It's gone a bit runny there, and this was a problem with the early English porcelain manufacturers, really trying to match the quality of the Chinese pieces. And this is soft paste porcelain rather than hard paste porcelain. So I was very pleased to find that, especially because it's got that London connection with Vauxhall. So that is number 2. Which means we come to my number 1 post-medieval find, which is this little fellow here, or this big fellow here, sort of chunk of hollow brick, glazed green on the outside and with a head of an animal there. Well, I wonder what this could be. Do you know? It's a stove tile. So these hollow tiles and other decorative tiles were made up into a large stove, which rather than a fireplace would be stoked and filled from outside the room using a vent, and then would radiate heat inside the room. So it's sort of smokeless, flameless central heating, really. Again, quite common on the continent, but didn't really catch on here, where we preferred our fireplaces and inglenookes. So these were made in Germany and imported, but they're also made in local industries. I think this is probably a Borderware one. Red clay with a thin coating of white clay to take the decoration, the glaze there. And it's the royal crest. So you've got an animal and then the crown, and there'd be another animal on the other side. And helpfully, the royal crest and some keying in marks there to fit to the next brick. The royal crest changed from the Tudor to the Stuart period. So in the Tudor period you have a griffin, and in the Stuart period you have a unicorn, and this is a griffin, as you can see there. So this is a Tudor royal coat of arms stove tile. So this would be 16th century. And really they were expensive, you know, a large amount of clay, bricks, decoration, and then you've got to build the whole thing and have a hole in your wall to stoke it from as well. So they were really only used in palaces and monasteries, and very well-off merchants might have had them as well. So a lovely find, just lying on the Thames foreshore, waiting for me to pick it up. So I hope you've enjoyed that top 10. Now, news is, I've just, thanks to my daughter and her technological help, started an Instagram account. So you can see some of my finds on Instagram. If you look me up, I'm Thames_pottery. So I hope you enjoy finding me there. I hope you've enjoyed this top 10, and hopefully we'll be able to get out and about soon to do some digging or some mudlarking, and I'll make another video. In the meantime, stay safe and see you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.